Here's a big mistake I see runners making when trying to run faster for longer. The problem is they burn out and get injured before achieving their running goals. So do this instead. It will help you a lot.
So the age-old question is, which method do I use? Do I use the Maffetone Method? Do I use the Cavarvan Method? Do I do the 220 my age method? Do I do the run-walk method? Like, it just goes on and on and on. Do you know what I mean, guys?
The type of training you pick will determine how you can run faster for longer, not burn out, and not get injured. So these are my thoughts. First of all, let's talk about what the Cavarvan method is and why it is so useful for heart rate training. The Cavarvan method is a way of determining your training heart rate zones based on your resting heart rate and your maximum heart rate. This is going to allow for more personalized approach to heart rate training as opposed to like the 220 minus your age or the Maffetone method, which, you know, is really two different ways. One is very arbitrary and one takes into account a whole bunch of other aspects when it comes to, you know, your previous training, where your fitness is at, what kind of medication you're on. This, you know, the Maffetone method takes into a lot of account of other aspects, kind of like a lifestyle in a way. So to use the Cavarvan method, you're going to need to first determine your heart rate zones. And this is the number of times your heart beats per minute. To find your resting heart rate, simply take your pulse first thing in the morning before getting out of bed. Count the number of beats in 15 seconds and then multiply that number by 4 to get the beats per minute. If you don't have, you know, one of these guys. Once you have your heart rate, you'll need to determine your maximum heart rate. And this is the highest number of times your heart can beat per minute during intense physical activity. So to find your maximum heart rate, you can use the formula 220 minus your age, which I wouldn't really use. I'll actually go out and do a field test or get in the lab to get your numbers figured out. So once you have your resting heart rate and your maximum heart rate, you can use the Cavarvan method formula to calculate your heart rate zones. And the formula, you can just go to this website here. It would be a lot easier than using the formula on your own. But let's say, so for example, you're a 30 years old runner with a resting heart rate of 60 and you have a maximum heart rate of 190. You know, if you want to calculate your heart rate zones for moderate intensity, which is typically around 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate, or your maximum heart rate, you would plug these numbers into the formula, such, you know, like this. This means that your heart rate zone for moderate intensity would be about 156 to 174 beats per minute. Now let's talk about the benefits of using the Cavarvan method to determine your heart rate zones. One of the big advantages of this approach is that it allows for a more personalized approach when it comes to training. So since it takes into account both your resting heart rate and your maximum heart rate, you can provide more accurate picture of your current fitness level and help you kind of set more appropriate training goals. For example, again, if you're a 30-year-old runner who just started to get into shape, if you again use the 220 minus your age or the other methods I've gone ahead and talked about, you might find that the recommendation heart rate zones are too high. On the other hand, if you use the Cavarvan method to calculate your heart rate zones, you'll be able to take into account your resting heart rate and set more realistic training goals. And this can help you avoid overtraining and burnout, and instead progress at a sustainable pace, allowing you to improve your fitness and reach your goals without burning out. Another benefit of using the Cavarvan method is it can help you monitor your progress over time. As you continue to train and your fitness improves, your resting heart rate will typically decrease. This means that your heart rate zones will also shift, allowing you to gradually increase the intensity of your training. And this can help you continue to challenge yourself and make progress towards your running goals. It's very cool when you really think about it. So, however, there are some potential drawbacks of the Cavarvan method. For example, it can be more complicated to use than some of the other methods. Really, at the end of the day, how hard is it to go out and get tested for your maximum heart rate? And how hard is it to really figure out your minimum heart rate? Additionally, the Cavarvan method does not take into account factors such as the type of exercise you are doing, which can impact your heart rate response. So again, maybe using power is an important factor, Or again, Maffetone Method that kind of takes into consideration a lot of those other factors. So whether you're weighing out which one you want to use, it'll have to come down to you, and it'll be you alone that has to decide what kind of workouts you want to achieve and what your heart rate kind of comes down to. If you can't do a field test to figure out what your maximum heart rate is, you could certainly go ahead and try to just use the 220 minus your age. But again, that doesn't always work. It's just kind of an average. And sometimes that kind of leads to burnout because your numbers don't correspond correctly. That's why using, your resting heart rate and your maximum heart rate, you can kind of really dial in what works for you. But again, if you have access to a lab, that may be more beneficial for you. So that way you can really refine what those numbers look like. So whatever method you guys decide to use, you want to make sure that you plug it into your Garmin Connect or your Coros training hub, because that really kind of sets things up, sets all your paces to where they need to be. And so that way, when you're out running, if you're in the correct zone, your watch is going to start beeping, and you want to keep it in your zones. It's allowed me to get out on the trail and run as opposed to doing a lot of hiking. Now, again, we're not talking running the whole entire time, but it has allowed me to progress. Now, again, am I in my zone 100% of the time? No, because again, I just want to be able to be out on the trail and at least do a little bit of running. And if my heart rate kind of goes out of my zone, I don't freak out a whole lot. I know that it needs to be in that zone. But again, I'm not getting too militant of it kind of sticking in that zone 100% of the time. Yeah, it's going to move a little bit, and I'm okay with that. Running can be fun, and it can be a form of punishment. I can remember being in school in gym class when the teacher starts punishing the kids by making us run laps around the field if we were late or disrupted class. Did this happen to you? I know it happened to me and my friend. So much so that most of my friends still hate running even to today. I never understood why a teacher would do this. Comment below with your thoughts on this, and if you're enjoying my videos, please consider liking the video, subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. Also hit the bell icon to get notifications to ensure you don't miss out on any new videos I upload. When it comes to the Maffetone Method, I like it specifically when I am training on the road because it really slows me down. I think most runners can relate. When you get out on the road, you tend to run a little too fast for most of your runs, and you're probably running in that really gray zone, in zone 3, a lot of your runs. And that's what happened to me. I burned out. I got injured when that happened. Now, the cool thing with the Maffetone Method is it takes into account a lot of things in your life, specifically your health. And it compensates for where you are in your health journey, so to speak. So to give you an idea, take 180 minus your age. Yes, it's age-based, but if you take 180 minus your age, and then if you have been training for 2 years without any injuries, you can add back 5 beats, okay? So 180 minus your age plus 5 if you've been running without any injuries, or you have to reduce 5 if you have extra weight to lose, or if you are on medication, you have to reduce it by 10. Now, the reason my understanding is with what Phil Maffetone talks about when it comes to that is medications can alter your heart rate. So you could be training in a zone that you shouldn't be training. And again, you risk those same things before with burnout and injury and things of that nature. So it does take more of a lifestyle. Now, there's also the other idea to monitor your fitness. You have to do a MAF test every month. And by doing so, it will help you determine whether or not you are improving or if you're regressing. If you're improving, that's amazing. Continue doing what you're doing.
And you should, over time, get faster at the same low heart rate. Now, if you regress, then there could be a problem, right? And that problem may stem from a number of these factors, right? We've got sleep that affects heart rate. We have the diet, the food that you're consuming, that you're putting in your body. Are you eating a lot of junk food? Are you eating a lot of carbs? I mean, like simple kind of carbs. I mean, I'm not talking sweet potatoes or vegetables. I'm talking like you're eating tons of bread, and you're eating a lot of or you're drinking a lot of like sodas and things like that. Like, you're just not consuming good quality food. That can affect your heart rate. If you are a caffeine consumer, if you love your coffee, yeah, that is going to be affected. Heart rate, I know for me, it jumps up a good 5 beats when I'm having coffee before a morning run. So I now tend to drink 4 Sigmatic. It's got a lower caffeine density, and I have it after my run. And to be quite honest, I've been taking a little bit of a break from caffeine. I've lowered the amount that I have on a daily basis. So with the Maffetone method, it takes in a lot of these calculations, a lot of these things, because there are a lot of you out there that, you know, tell me that you are having a hard time with this whole Maffetone method. So that, to me, also spells out there's other things going on in your life. Like with the Maffetone training, you have to train a little bit more than I have in the past, right? Like, you're putting in a little bit more mileage, a little bit more time on your feet. Now, as a runner, that's great, but when you're like walking and hiking, it's not necessarily a lot of fun when all you want to do is run. So there's these things that you need to kind of get your head around. The ego is the worst, right? If you've been running like me for a while and you're like, yeah, now I'm reduced to having to walk because my heart rate starts to climb. Yeah, it's not a fun place to be in. So that's why these other methods work, but you just have to decide as a runner, which one are you going to use when you're heart rate training? Which one are you going to use when you're out running with friends? Which one are you going to use when you're running on a trail or when you're running on a road? If you want to explore the Maffetone method for the first time, or if you're coming back from an injury, burnout, whatever it is, or if you're looking for a change up on how to do things with heart rate training, specifically using the Maffetone method, this video right here will help you all the way through. It'll answer a lot of those questions. If you live in such a hilly place and you want to run, this could be a method for you. Rick's retreat is difficult, so this